being called an emergency temporary standard. The Biden administration releasing new sweeping federal rules requiring a majority of U.S. workers to comply with this COVID mandate by January 4th, already raising red flags, expected lawsuits rather, and quite a controversial conversation. Here now is how the rule will read. It requires all private employers with 100 or more workers to either require full vaccination or they opt to have workers be tested. Employers need to give paid leave for vaccinations but aren't required to pay for testing. And even tougher requirements for health care employers who accept Medicare and Medicaid dollars. Federal contractors and federal employees, they must be vaccinated. These rules all being administered through the Labor Department. And joining us now to discuss, Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. Mr. Secretary, nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me today.
So these rules will apply to more than 2/3 of the nation's workforce. And the administration has said it will be good for the economy, yet small business advocacy groups and attorneys general are already threatening lawsuits, saying the impact from this will actually devastate small business communities. What evidence do you have that this won't happen?
Well, I've heard from a lot of businesses that are happy about this, that they like this. Many businesses in this country have already begun doing this. They already have 90% roughly of their workforce vaccinated in a lot of ways. You know, we looked at the law, we looked at the rules. We came up with a standard that would be a vaccine. It's not a mandate, it's a vaccine. If people refuse or didn't want to get vaccinated, they'll be able to get tested on a weekly basis. Companies will work to set that up. And then also wear a mask in certain areas. I've heard some people saying, you know, truck drivers are upset about it. If you're a truck driver and you're outside, you're in a cabin driving by yourself, this doesn't impact you. If you're a worker outside working in an area, this doesn't impact you. We're really getting to the point of making sure that we're watching out and looking out for the health and safety of workers in the workplace, in a confined space, in an area. And I'm hopeful. I think that this is just another step as we move forward here through the process of the pandemic and what we want to do. We want to get as many people vaccinated as possible in the United States of America, and the intention behind the testing is that if we can catch the virus before it spreads in a workplace, and that's really the intent behind this.
Mr. Secretary, I want to get you to answer just a little bit more on some of the criticism that's been directed at this rule. You're familiar with it, but these businesses Kira was talking about also pushing back, warning of more worker shortages. A lot of people worried about that right now headed into the holidays, the shipping delays, the staffing shortages. The Retail Federation, of course, sent you a letter last month that said this requirement would shrink their worker pool. Are they wrong? Have you looked at this?
Well, they're not right on it. So I'm not going to say. I mean, I'm not going to be critical of them. But this rule's been out for about 6 hours now, and I think that I would like to ask people to take another look at it. The way this rule, the process of this rule goes, we were very intentional about it doesn't fully go into effect till after the holiday season in January. But within the next 30 days, companies will be required to give us their information on how they're going to work towards this process. But this will not have an impact on workers as far as hiring in the holiday season at all. As a matter of fact, the companies that have instituted not this policy, but a policy similar to this, they are actually hiring people.
So, Mr. Secretary, critics also saying that this is just the federal government once again engaging in overreach into personal medical decisions. What do you say to that? And also, if a CEO says, hey, no way, I'm not going to do this, how do you expect to find out which companies are actually complying and those that are not?
Well, I think that, you know, as this rule was put together, the folks at OSHA were very, very conscious of making sure that we put a rule in place that people could cover all people. What I mean by that is that vaccines, we're encouraging, employers will encouraging vaccinations, and many employers in this country have already done that. And if a person feels and doesn't want a vaccine, doesn't want to get vaccinated, the option of testing is there. And so we want to make sure it's not a mandate. We want to move forward and make sure that I think we're going to cover roughly 84 million Americans are going to be covered by this rule as we move forward. And then the company's going to have the information available on site. So if an employee wants to check and see what's the situation, who's been vaccinated, who's getting tested, they have a chance as well to see it in front of them right there. So that's kind of how the compliance is going to go.
But what if the CEO says no? What if the business owner says we're not going to do it? Are they going to have to pay a price here? And how will you know?
Well, OSHA's going to be looking at that and looking at the situations there, and there is an ability for us to have conversations. I mean, my goal here is not to go on finding businesses in America. My goal is to hopeful that we'll be able to get businesses to comply with the emergency temporary standard. Again, and there's going to be there's a comment period here that if companies have issues, they should send in their comments. But again, the intention behind this is really to make sure is the health and safety of workers.
And you've said a couple of times now, Mr. Secretary, that this is not a mandate. Of course, many Republicans see it differently. They're already filing lawsuits this afternoon. I wanted to get your reaction
on the new OSHA regulation that has been published today. We will fight that aggressively. We have been, and we will continue to fight these unlawful regulations and acts and intrusions on the rights of our people with all the strength that we have.
They say, Mr. Secretary, that no one's in grave danger anymore because COVID is declining, the case counts are down. Of course, it's not a hazard, they say, specific to the workplace. I mean, do you think any of those arguments are going to have traction in court?
You know, I respect the Attorney General's right to file a lawsuit if he chooses. There are people every day in this country coming down with infections. There are people still in the hospitals in America. We're still having people die every day in America. One person dying is too many people dying. The intention, again, behind this is about the health and safety of the worker. And I think that when we think about this rule, this law, what we talked about is that it's vaccination or testing, and then also hopefully also working with companies to encourage people to get vaccinated. So while they're able to get vaccinated, they get a few hours off during the day to get vaccinated. So there is no malice behind this. Our whole ruling here, our whole goal here is to get people vaccinated or get them protected by getting tested and wearing a mask. You know, a couple weeks ago, I was walking by the Washington Mall here down the street from my office, and there was 850,000 white flags on the mall. Each of those flags represent a family member that passed away. Each of those flags represent an American that passed away. And I think it's all of our duty to keep America safe and work with people to keep them safe. This is not a political issue. The standard was very, very thoughtful, very well written, and I'm hopeful that I think there are more people in this country that will agree with what we're doing here in OSHA in the Department of Labor and what the President has laid out than people that won't.
And we appreciate your time this afternoon, sir, talking about it, explaining a little bit more about it. Excuse me. Before we let you go, though, I do want to just quickly ask you, you were, of course, former mayor of Boston. Historic news just this week there. The city elected its first woman and first person of color in 200 years. Wanted to get your thoughts on Mayor-elect Michelle Wu and the significance of the moment.
Yeah, I spoke to Mayor Wu yesterday. I congratulated her. She fought a great fight. It was a great race. You know, I offered any support that I can offer her. You know, she's going to do a great job as mayor of the city of Boston. And you know, it is historic for Boston, and it's a time to sit back and really think about the history in its making. Every mayor of Boston looked like me, a white man, and I think that the fact that Boston is taking the next step is a great step for Boston, and quite honestly, a great step for America.
Well, breaking barriers in Beantown. That's a good news. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.